I've been performing magic shows for 16 years, but sometimes I still get nervous going up on stage, and I keep it a rule that when I'm going up on stage that day, I'm only going to eat a deck of cards for breakfast, so that even if I throw up on stage, it's going to be a magic trick. When I was in elementary school, my teacher taught me that there are 6 ways to ask questions about anything: what, who, when, where, why, and how. And this is the time I learned the word interrogatives. And I vividly remember this because this was around the time that the first Harry Potter book came out. It was when I was 7. And my life was full of questions. I became obsessed with performing and practicing magic tricks. So this is me studying really hard in a Harry Potter costume. Back then, I seriously believed that if I practiced magic hard enough, I'm going to become the first international student at Hogwarts from Japan. Yes, it didn't happen. And then I look back on all the questions that I were asked in the classroom by my teachers, and I realized that there's a problem. I think there was an unbalanced focus on the question, what? What do I need to know to do well on the exam? What do I need to study to get into a good school? And it seemed like that was the only thing that the teachers cared about. So there was a quote by Aristotle that says, "Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all." And I have to apologize to Aristotle because I'm no Aristotle at all, but I have my own version of this quote, which is that performing for the mind without performing for the heart is no performance at all. And this comes from my experience in performing magic shows. So I could learn a routine, what magic trick I'm going to perform from a DVD or from a book. But when you're interfacing with real audience, you have to think about, okay, who am I performing for? Why was I invited in the first place? Where is the venue? When and how long is the show? And how can I make the audience happy? When all of these questions are answered thoughtfully, magic becomes more than just an enigma or a mystery. It becomes a sense of wonder or an intimate human connection or a sense of speculation. And that's what I want to make happen in education as well. 6 years ago, I was still in school, and I decided to start a summer camp in Japan. It was a side project of mine, and I called it GAKKO. GAKKO means school in Japanese. I used to complain a lot about my education in Japan, but looking back, I never really took action. I never tried to fix anything. So maybe building a school is a little bit too difficult, but I thought I could do a summer camp. Instead of buying a campus, I rented an art museum in Japan. Instead of hiring professors and professional teachers, I invited 14 of my friends to become teachers for a summer. And we created workshops that taught topics that we were just really passionate about learning ourselves. Since then, the camp has been taking place every year, inviting increasingly diverse participants from various corners of the globe. Last November, I left my job in Silicon Valley and went full-time. Now we're based in San Francisco and Tokyo with camps happening around the world, with various other exciting projects related to education under our belt. But our focus has stayed consistent. How can we make education magical? How can we create experiences that educate both mind and heart? The past 5 years have proven that building a magical environment for learning starts with choosing the right people. We believe that people shouldn't need a government certification to be able to share their passion or ideas. Instead we look for empathy, compassion, depth in personality, the unique, authentic perspective to their expertise. Instead of calling them teachers and students, we call the camp creators senpai and the camp participants kohai. These are terms in Japanese. Senpai means those who were born before, and kohai means those who were born after. This is important because at GAKKO camps, education isn't a one-directional knowledge transfer, but instead a conversation, a dialogue that's happening on an equal plane. Both the teachers and students, we both share and both learn, but we acknowledge that some were born before the others. But that doesn't change the fact that we are all walking towards the future together. Every October, we open an application to the world. If you can become a high school teacher for a day in your life, what would you teach and why? We receive hundreds of applications from college students, graduate school students, professionals from around the world, and we choose 10 people for each camps and invite them to co-create a summer camp from scratch. This year, we opened the High Schooler application to 700 high schools around the world, calling for high school students who are looking for something more in their education. We ended up choosing students from 37 different countries to become kohai for our summer camps. High school students' interest and outlook on the world are often mixtures of very different ideas and expectations. And that's why we believe that pedagogy should also be just as unpredictable and interdisciplinary. So what I love about doing this job, my favorite thing is that I can experience summer all along. As we expand our camps to different countries, I realized that one time it's summer in the northern hemisphere, and then it becomes summer in the southern hemisphere. So summer camp, you think that it's this one thing that happens once a year, but it can be summer all year long. You know, I'm living a life. There are summer camps all around the world throughout the year. The school that I studied at in Japan looked like this: concrete cubicles. And this is what we don't want to become. So instead, we find beautiful places in the world to make it our own school. And this is because we want to communicate many of our ideas and philosophies and pedagogy and the way we teach, not through talking to them directly, but through space that we choose and the space that we curate. We have a full-time architect on our team, constantly researching and experimenting how we can design better spaces for learning. We are currently designing this modular architectural structures and spaces like tents that the camp creators can check in on the flights with them. And when this is done, we could become a traveling circus of education. We can bring our GAKKO houses to wherever we go and attach it to pre-existing spaces. 6 weeks before the camp begins, all the camp creators assemble in our studio in Tokyo and start creating the camp. And this is the moment when all the senpai from various corners of the globe, different walks of life, they meet in person for the very first time. And they start jamming together, bringing what they have in their heads out on the table, merging them, and create magic that speaks to people's heart. We present, we give feedback, and we iterate. We do all day, all night long for 6 weeks. And this is actually incredibly, incredibly difficult. I've been designing softwares for the past 3 years, but designing a good summer camp, designing a good workshop is actually a lot more difficult. And we call this process proto-experience. It's a process of bringing what's in your head and making it into something that appeals to people's heart. And in the end, we produce a wall full of specifications and wireframes for GAKKO workshops. And we pack them into our bags and off we go. So this is Jack, a mathematics master's student from Oxford, teaching a class on cryptography. He managed to create the world's first human Enigma machine. Enigma machine was a rotor cipher machine invented by the Germans during the World War II. By using kohai, the students as rotors, and volleyball as the digital signal. A dancer and a photographer collaborated to invent a workshop that was about creating your own mantra, a visual identity, through capturing people's dance on a long exposure camera. Michael, a graphic designer from San Francisco, opened a museum of portraits. He invited everyone to become artists and create portraits of themselves. Jessica, an architect, taught a class on architecture, sustainability, and engineering using scrap materials. And these are only the tip of the iceberg of hundreds of classes, the workshops that we invented in the last 5 years. I want to bring my computer science background to make this archive of workshops available to not only hundreds of people who participate in our summer camps, but millions of high school students who deserve to have more magic in their everyday learning. We're currently building a digital technology to make this happen. Why? And I'm going to take you to the last day of the summer camp. So I believe that we, both senpai and kohai of life, learn because this world is like this big, grand ecosystem of magic, and we are all here to be part of it. As spectators, but also performers. I couldn't go to Hogwarts, but I realized that we can create learning experiences that are just as magical ourselves. I want all of you to be a part of this magic. And it usually starts with a question. If you can become a high school teacher for a day in your life, what would you teach and why? Thank you.